In this video, we will be converting mixed radicals to entire radicals. Converting from mixed form to entire form involves a reversal of process. Any number can be written as the square root of its square, the cube root of its cube, and so on. For example, 2 is the square root of 2 squared, but 2 is also the cube root of 2 cubed. Here's an example. Write 4 root 6 as an entire radical. First, write 4 as a radical with index 2. Recall that for a square root, the index is 2, and that's the engine that drives the whole process. So once again, writing 4 as the square root of 4 times 4, now we can rewrite 4 root 6 as the square root of 4 times 4 times the square root of 6. Bringing it all under the radical sign, we can write it as the square root of 4 times 6, which is the square root of 96. So 4 root 6 is equivalent to the entire radical of root 96. We can verify this with technology. Notice that 4 root 6 and root 96 are the same decimal equivalent, and we're done. Let's look at another example. Write -2 cube root of 5 as an entire radical. First, write -2 as a radical with index 3. It is a cube root, so the index 3 is the engine behind the whole process. So -2 is the cube root of -2 all cubed. Notice the brackets. So -2 is the cube root of -2 times -2 times -2. So -2 cube root of 5 is the cube root of -2 times -2 times -2 times the cube root of 5. All under one radical symbol. -2 times -2 times -2 times 5, we end up with the cube root of -40. So -2 cube root of 5 is equal to the cube root of -40. We can verify this with technology, and you can see that the mixed radical and the entire radical are equivalents, and we're done. Write each mixed radical as an entire radical. Let's rewrite the 9 as the square root of 9 times 9 times the square root of 3. Bring all under one root sign, so that'll be 9 times 9 times 3, and 9 times 9 times 3 is the square root of 243. So 9 root 3 is equivalent to the entire radical of square root of 243. Let's look at B. B is a little different. There's a caution with B. There's an even index. There's a negative. When there's an even index, we leave the negative outside at all times. So this will be, leave the negative. We'll rewrite the 3 as the 4th root of 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times the 4th root of 2. The negative stays outside, as I said. This will be the 4th root of 81 times the 4th root of 2. This is the 4th root of 81 times 2. And we end up with negative 4th root of 162. So -3 4th root of 2 is equivalent to the entire radical of negative 4th root of 162. Let's order the mixed radicals below from smallest to largest. 2 root 6, 3 root 3, 2 cube root of 3, 3 cube root of -2. Let's look at a 2 square root 6. We can rewrite that as the square root of 2 times 2 times the square root of 6, which is the square root of 2 times 2 times 6. This is the square root of 24. 24 is really close to the square root of 25, but a little bit less. So this is around, say, 4.9. Let's look at 3 and the square root of 3. So this is the square root of 3 times the square root of 3, which is the square root of 3 times 3 times 3. This is the square root of 27. This is close to the square root of 25, but a little bit bigger. This is around 5.1. Let's look at 2 and the cube root of 3. We can rewrite 2 and the cube root of 3 as the cube root of 2 times 2 times 2 times the cube root of 3. This is the cube root of 2 times 2 times 2 all times 3, which is the cube root of 24. This is really close to the cube root of 27, and the cube root of 27 is of course 3. So this is really close to 3, but a little less, so around 2.8. Let's look at the last one, 3 and the cube root of negative 2. So I'm going to write this as the cube root of 3 times 3 times 3 times the cube root of negative 2, which is the cube root of 3 times 3 times 3 times negative 2. This is the cube root of negative 54. And that's a negative number, so that's going to be the smallest number when ordered from smallest to largest anyway. So here's our numbers. We'll have the cube root of negative 54, the cube root of negative 54, which is 3 and the cube root of negative 2. The smallest number from the other three is 2.8, and that is the cube root of 24, and that is 2 and the cube root of 3. The next biggest number is 4.9, which of course is the square root of 24, which in its original form was 2 and the square root of 6. The last and the biggest number, 3 square root 3. That was the square root of 27, and so so the next number would be 3 square root 3. So here it is in order, from smallest to largest. Please proceed to the next activity in this lesson, and thank you for viewing.